Hello, are you ready for bed? I hope you've brushed your teeth and are ready to snuggle down. Now, imagine yourself on the amazing island of Pemba in the warm and clear blue sea near Africa. If you can imagine yourself standing in the thick jungle, surrounded by the wonderful noises of all the animals who live there, and thick with thousands of tall trees and enjoying the warm air. Well, this is where Zap lives. Zap is a chameleon, and he really loves living deep in the jungle of Pemba Island. He also loves being a chameleon, as he can change his colour to camouflage himself against his surroundings. If he was on the green bush, he could turn himself green. If he was on a brown bush, he could turn himself brown. It sort of made him invisible. Being invisible meant he could have lots of fun, and he loved to be cheeky to the other animals. One of his favourite tricks would be to sit on a green bush and wait for Taboti, the chief lion on the island. Taboti, the lion, was a bit stuck up and very, very proud of himself, and he walked around showing off his fluffy mane and shiny white sharp teeth. Oh, ha 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 ha! Oh, look at me, I am beautiful, he would say to himself. Zap thought he was rather silly, and whenever he saw Taboti walking past, he would make himself invisible on the green bush and wait for Taboti to be right beside him, and then shout, "Hello, big butt!" Taboti always got annoyed, and he would turn around and roar, "Who said that?" But he could never see who it was. And as soon as he started to walk away again, Zap would shout, "Goodbye, big butt! See you, smelly head!" "Who is that?" Taboti would roar again, but all he could hear is an invisible giggle. Not just one giggle, but hundreds of giggles, as Zap's friends would always gather to watch the fun. Taboti would always walk off in a rather big humph. Zap was always hungry, and his favourite meal was eating flies. And because he could make himself invisible, he could catch nice little flies on most of the bushes in the jungle. But there was one particular bush that had a strange mix of orange, red and black leaves, and all different oranges, reds and black colours, depending on how the sun was shining on it. The problem was that this bush attracted the biggest, plumpest and buzziest flies who liked to feed on its smelly fruit. Zap had tried hundreds of times to catch these juicy flies, but while he could change himself to a red, black and orange colour all at the same time, the bush was very stripy, and also changed its colours of red and orange in the sunlight. So every time Zap moved towards a giant fly, it would see him just in time and buzz off. Bzzz. He had never tasted one, but he imagined they must be wonderful. Zap got thinking. The reason the flies always got away was because he had to move to get closer to them. "How can I get closer to them without them seeing me?" Zap thought. An idea flashed into his head. "Maybe I shouldn't move at all. Maybe I should try and catch them with my tongue. But my sticky tongue is quite short." He closed his eyes. He found it easier to think with his eyes closed, and got most of his big ideas by doing this, and really concentrating. He hummed while he thought. "I've got it!" he shouted. "All I need to do is stretch my tongue so I can fire it out and trap them." But Zap wasn't sure how he could stretch his tongue. "Well, my tongue is sticky," he said to himself. "So why don't I stick myself to a tree?" It was rather a strange idea, but that is what he did. He went to his favourite tree in the jungle and climbed right down to the bottom. He opened his mouth and he stuck his tongue as hard as he could against the tree, just to see if it would stick. And it did.
"Oh, that feels a bit funny,"
he said. He didn't really like it, but he was determined to try his plan. And now it was time. He started to walk backwards and stretch his tongue little by little. He pulled back and he walked slowly back, and it started to tighten his tongue. He tried to walk back more, but his tongue was strong and he couldn't stretch it out any more. Suddenly, he heard a voice.
"What are you doing, Zap?"
He looked around but couldn't see anybody. But just then, his friend Harry, another chameleon, made himself visible. He was sitting on the tree that Zap was stuck to.
"Oh, hello, Harry,"
he said, but that sounding a bit silly as his tongue was still stuck on the tree.
"I'm trying to stretch my tongue so I can catch one of those big juicy flies we always see on the orange, red and black bush. The only problem is I can't stretch my tongue enough."
"Oh, if you want, I can come down and help pull," said Harry. Zap agreed, and Harry came down. Harry grabbed on behind Zap, wrapped his arms tightly around him, and got ready to pull.
"Pull!"
shouted Zap. They both pulled together, and Zap's tongue became tight as they pulled back. They both pulled and pulled a little more, and then a little more, and a little more. Zap started to say,
"Oh no, it feels funny."
But Harry couldn't really understand him properly, because his tongue was still stuck on the tree. But his tongue didn't stretch much more. They just weren't strong enough. "Do you want more help?" shouted lots of voices from the trees around. About 100 other chameleons had gathered to watch what Zap and Harry were doing.
It looks very strange, but also quite good fun.
"Can we help?"
Oh, that would be great,"
said Zap. So they all came down and joined on. One after another, they held on, holding onto each other's backs in a long chain.
"This is it,"
thought Zap. He got himself ready and said,
1, 2, 3, pull!"
The 101 chameleons all pulled together, and Zap's tongue began to stretch just a little bit. And then a little bit more. And they pulled some more, and it stretched even more. Until Zap shouted, "Stop! Stop!" But they couldn't understand him, because his tongue was so long now, and still stuck to the tree. "Stop! Stop!" Zap shouted. His tongue was getting too long. Harry suddenly realised what Zap was saying, and he shouted, "Stop!" at the top of his voice. Everybody let go, and Zap shot off back to the tree like a catapult. Shtum! Harry ran to Zap to see if he was okay. Zap was at the bottom of the tree, very still, but with a gigantically long tongue all around him. "Are you okay, Zap?" asked a worried Harry.
I think so,"
panted Zap. But then he saw his snake-long tongue lying on the ground.
"Oh no! How am I going to fit this in my mouth?"
he said to Harry. Harry giggled a little bit.
I don't know. It's very, very long.
I think I'm going to try and roll it up,"
said Zap. And so slowly he rolled his tongue up like a long piece of flat licorice. He rolled it all the way up into a round wheel, opened his mouth, and just managed to close his mouth over it. It felt very, very strange and a bit uncomfy. And he couldn't speak properly, which made all the chameleons chuckle.
"Shut up,"
Zap said, but that just made them laugh louder and harder. Now, with his long tongue, Zap set off for the red, orange and black bush, thinking of a juicy dinner. He hoped it had all been worth the effort and rather painful stretching. Climbing up onto the bush, he made himself comfortable and sat still. He changed his colour to orange, black and red, as he always did, but this time he didn't move a muscle. He sat still like a statue and waited for one of the plump fruit flies to arrive. It wasn't long before the biggest fly he'd ever seen landed on the bush. Bzz, bzz, bzz. It had landed a little bit too far away, except that now Zap had a very, very, extremely long, sticky tongue. Zap got himself ready. He focused hard on his juicy target and counted down in his head.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And fadoosh! His gigantic tongue fired out like a sticky bullet. It flew in a flash and stuck straight onto the juicy fly. He'd got it! Zap opened his mouth as wide as he could, and he rolled his tongue back all the way in, and he closed his mouth tight. And, oh, what a taste! He slowly chewed the fly like it was made of juicy gold. He had never tasted anything so scrumptious.
Oh, yum, yum, yummy,
his tummy said. All his friends had been watching from the green bush. Harry asked Zap,
What's the fly like? Oh, it's the best thing you could ever taste,
said Zap, while his body flashed to every colour he knew. Harry thought for a moment, and then made his own way to Zap's favourite tree. He then also stuck his tongue on the tree just like Zap, and started to pull. All the other chameleons joined up in the chain again, and started to pull Harry back. They stretched and stretched his tongue, but not quite as long as Zap's anaconda-sized tongue.
I'm next,
said the second in line.
And then me,
said the third. And so it went on. After a whole day and night of pulling, every chameleon on Pemba Island had a nice, long, sticky tongue. And that is how chameleons got their amazing, sticky, long, clever tongues. Zap was extremely pleased. He went back to his favourite green bush and waited for Taboti to walk past again. Oh, yes, look at me. How beautiful I am, he was saying to himself yet again. It wasn't long before 1,000 little voices shouted,
Hello, fat butt!
Followed by an angry, Who said that to the king? But all Taboti heard was 1,000 little giggles. And that's the end of the story. Sleep tight. Night, night. This story was created and written by Robin Claridge. All copyrights reserved.